So I'm still in section 1.2 homework, but I'm now in the second part of this. And I'm going to use the calculator to plot some points. We're going to create what's called a scatter plot, which is where we're going to plot just some points. The way we do that on the calculator. First, actually, before I go there, I'm going to go to y equals, make sure this is cleared out. It is. Then I'm going to press the stat button. And when I press the stat button, edit, and then number 1 edit is highlighted. Go ahead and hit enter, and that takes us to the lists. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this table here and enter it in as list 1 and list 2. The x values are list 1, the y values are list 2. So as I enter in the x values, for these negatives, remember we use the negative to the left of enter. Do not use the minus button or else you will get an error. But I'm going to enter in these values. So there's my list 1, those are the x values, and then in list 2, the corresponding y values. And you do want to double check when you're entering things into lists. It's always a good idea to double check your values, that you've got everything entered in properly. You also want to double check that you don't have a missed number. So you want to make sure your lists end at the same place. So for instance, if I had an extra number in list 1 versus list 2, there would be a problem. And that's something that the calculator is going to give you an error message on. So you do want to make sure your lists end at the same place. So now I have my data in the two lists. I want to go ahead and graph them. Before I graph these, I'm going to set my window. So I want to be able to see all of these points. The x values go from -3 up to +11. So you want your window to show at least that. If you want to go outside of that, and I typically do, you're welcome to do that, but you want to at least go from -3 to +11 for your x values. I like to go a little bit outside of those, so I'm going to go from -5 to +15 for my x's. It's a little bit arbitrary. For the y's, again, I want to have at least -36 to +104. This is me. I like to go outside of those a little bit. So I'm going to go from -40 as my y min up through 110 as my y max. Now, my window is set. I have the data in my calculator. If I hit graph, though, I don't see anything. I'm not actually seeing the scatter plot. That's because I don't have the scatter plot turned on yet. To turn it on, you're going to hit second and then y equals, and that takes you to your stat plots. Number 1 is highlighted, so I'm going to hit enter. And depending on your calculator, you may not have the choice to pick a color. It's no big deal if you don't. The main thing is that you have the scatter plot, which is this first one here highlighted, and that you turn it on. That's what you have to do. Your calculator should default to have your x values in list 1 and your y values in list 2. If it does not, please email me and I can walk you through that one-on-one. But that should default there. So now that I have the scatter plot turned on, if I hit graph again, you can see there are the points. And these line up in a straight line. So here it says choose the correct graph. It's going to be choice B. Then it says use a graphing utility to graph the equation f of x equals 10x minus 6 on the same set of axes. So what I'm going to do on my calculator is I'm going to hit y equals, and in y1, I'm going to enter 10x minus 6. And then I'm going to hit graph again, and here you can see that that line goes through all of the points. So in MyMathLab here, it asks you to choose the correct choice, and this is going to be choice C. The line does go through all of the points. It's not above them, below them, anywhere else. And then third part says, do the points fit the graph? They certainly do. You're not always going to get equations that perfectly line up with the scatter plot like we have here, but in this case, they certainly do. So the answer is going to be yes.